Okay guys, sorry. I didn't expect for there to be a part 3, but as I went outside, a part 3 was deposited in my spirit. So part 3 is you don't have to lose hope because things are not always as they seem. And what do I mean by that? Okay, so you remember what I said about Abraham, how when he was going to kill his son, what happened was that it was just a test and the angel came and said, you were just being tested. So he didn't have to kill his son, right? Number 2, Job, even though he lost what he had and whatnot when he was tested, God tripled everything he had and blessed him in abundance. So one of the things that I loved the most when I was a little girl about fairy tales is that you always knew, at least back then, because now the world is so corrupt that now I think people rejoice when bad stuff happens at the end. But you always knew that the good guy was going to win at the end. Like no matter what happened, you always knew that a miracle or a setback or something was going to happen at the end where the outcome was going to be good. You know, even Jesus, when he died, yeah, he died, but guess what? He didn't stay dead. He rose from the grave and he defeated hell, and he's now seated at the right hand of the Father, throne of God. So we see how it didn't end in a bad ending. It seemed as it was a bad ending. And even Hannah, Prophet Samuel's mother that we talked about, God gave her a lot of kids. And think about it, her son, one of her sons is a prophet of God. Like amazing, what an honor. But I was thinking, I saw a movie that was called Spirited. It's with Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell. And I mean, I'm going to give the punchline away if I say this, but something happens where Ryan Reynolds is like, the ending sucks. And the ending didn't suck. The ending was good. It seemed like the ending sucked, but there was a twist. So why do I say this? Because sometimes even though we can see it, there's a twist. And God is a God of hope. So it reminds me that Prophet Isaiah was sent. Not now, Caesar. Sorry. So Prophet Isaiah was sent to Hezekiah to let him know that he was going to die, that God said he was going to die. And this man turned around and prayed inwardly. He prayed and he said, God, I've been faithful. And he started to pray. And the Lord told Prophet Isaiah to turn around and tell Hezekiah that God was adding 15 more years to his life. And God reminded me of this because God gave me a prophecy not too long ago. And he said, Sandra, I want you to ask me. He said, I want you to ask me because sometimes you feel like you can't ask me for things because they're bad. And he said, I want you to ask me for the harvest. You know, and he reminded me of that man that turned around and asked God for 15 more years. And God gave it to him. And God knew he was going to ask him for 15 more years. It's written down so that he can be glorified. Some people say, oh, it wasn't God's perfect will because then his grandson, I think, or something killed this. And it was, I don't even know. But it's written down, and God wanted it to be written down for a reason, for us to know that prayer works. Just like when Moses prayed for the people of Israel, that God was going to destroy them. And when Moses said, Lord, it's your reputation, like then the people are going to say, oh, look, you took them out of Egypt to kill them in the desert. And God changes his mind, you know? So another one is Abraham, when God was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And he told his friend, he didn't have to. God doesn't have to tell us anything, but he chose to tell his friend, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And Abraham talked to God and he negotiated. And he was like, well, Lord, what about if there's 50 just? What about if there's 40 just? What about if there's 30, 20, and then 10? Don't get mad at me for continuing to ask you. And God was like, there's not. but because of his love for Abraham, he spared his nephew Lot, even though Lot and his daughters were already contaminated. And we see how his daughters did what they did, got their father drunk and did something evil, because even though they went out of the city was not outside of them. You know that saying, you can take the girl or the man out of the hood, but you can't take the hood out of them, etc. But God is so faithful and so beautiful. As long as when we're facing trouble, we don't hide like Adam and Eve, that they decided to hide, but we come to him. He's so good. I mean, he rebukes his children, he rebukes those he loves, but he's a good father. I remember when I used to work in IHOP, one night, some people came, it was like a party of 5, and they stole from me. They ate, they got a lot of food, And when I went to the kitchen, they all got up and they left and they didn't pay. And then the manager told me I had to come out of my pocket. It was everything I had made that night. Straight out of there. I used to work the graveyard shift from 10 at night to 6 in the morning. 6 in the morning, I left to go to morning prayer because the church where I used to go to, ERJ, would be open from like 5 to like 9 in the morning for prayer. I went straight to the church to prayer, to cry out to God and say, Lord, it's not fair, but I was so angry. And the Lord corrected me. The Lord corrected me and he told me, get up and stop crying and let me handle that. And sure enough, everything that I had, I laid it before him. I left that place like if nothing had happened. Justice had been done. So I want to put that out there because God is a God of hope. It doesn't matter what the enemy may be lying to you. You know, you may have been hurt. You may have been betrayed. But God wants to heal your heart. And maybe he used that for you to turn to him. And instead it led you to turn away from him. Instead it led you to turn to something else for you to forget your troubles. But that was never God's intention. God's intention was never for you to be hurt. But he does use that for you to get closer to him. But he will never force you to get closer to him. That comes from us. So I just want to put that out there. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.